Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss the crypto market, the NFT market, and how the number keeps going up because we are so back. Markets are moving up very, very nicely. Majors and memes as well had a little bit of indication from Trump yesterday that there would be no intention of firing the Fed chairman Powell, as if that was even potentially on the table. He's also been softening his tone against China. We'll touch on all of those important bits of news that you need to know. We'll also be talking about Cantor, run by the US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's son. Close to $3 billion should be being directed towards Bitcoin. I think that's pretty huge news. So we'll discuss that in more detail in a bit too. And memes, Fartcoin's up another 8%, but huge moves across the board. Pengu's up 35%, Cerebro's up 160%. We'll be discussing a little bit on the AI side. Are we going to run back AI coins? What do we think of them? They've obviously had a big move today. We'll discuss that in a little bit, as well as spend a bit of time thinking about the L1 trade, Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, Sui, Hype, also big movers, particularly Sui. So we'll be thinking about that in a little bit. So we've got all that to come. Looking forward to have that discussion. Got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. Cannot wait to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do that, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is very, very risky, and we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution, exercise your own judgment, and do your own research. How about that towards the end? Right. Legendary, with that out of the way, it's Wednesday, it's the 23rd of April. Markets are moving. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM Jim, doing pretty well. I went out for a morning run, and my current procedure is to take the running data in a very, very primitive way and basically screenshot all of the data from Strava or the apps that I'm using and upload that into ChatGPT. Basically collect all my runs there and use a specific project within ChatGPT that I had created to use GPT as my coach, as my running coach. And I'm working on a mini app that is helping with this process because I find it very cumbersome to take 5 screenshots after every run and upload that manually. I feel like this is not how things should be done in 2025, especially for someone who loves AI tools as much as I do. So I'm currently working on an automated solution, which is exporting them as a fit file after the run, is mailing them to a specific address that then can be imported into that ChatGPT project. And this is the current workflow that I have planned that I'm trying to figure out as we speak. So hopefully that will work within the next couple of days.
You lost me on this one. This is too many steps. I thought AI was supposed to make our lives easier.
Dude, 99% of people who want to go for a run just leave the house and go for a run, but I have to
exactly
make it a techie app building process.
That's my exact point. Sounds like it's exceedingly complicating the life. The one thing that I found out about this, we're going to get into the main stuff as usual in just a second. Like to riff sometimes on this latest tech as well. I'm always super against tech, actually, when it comes to monitoring health. I've always been.
I think we lost you there. All right. So while you are trying to come back, what we're going to do in the meantime is I'm just going to get started with the main show. Give me a second to collect the stuff that I need for that. And we won't hear what Bichek was thinking on health and data already. There we go. Starting as usual with the price action, with the majors first. Everything is very, very green. Quite glad that I actually get to present this. Bitcoin is up 6% to 93.7K. ETH is up 11%. ETH is for one day leading the rally, just crossed 1.8K. Solana is up 9% at $153. BNB is up 1%. BNB actually pretty flat. Even on the 7-day chart, BNB is up 5% versus Solana, for example, which is up 20%. So summing it up, all the majors are looking pretty damn impressive, and especially ETH, which is leading this run. On the meme coin side of things, we also have a massive green run going on. Dogecoin is up 11%, Shiba is up 9%. Pepe, double-digit gains, up 14%. Everything is green. Bonk, 24%. Dog with Hat, up almost 30%. Brett is up 37%. SPX Mertz coin up 20%. Pudgy Penguins up 35%. Turbo up 76%, and so on and so forth. I'm scrolling through this list. Very, very impressive gains on the meme side of things across the board. Moving into the main headlines. The first main headline, we touched on that already, is obviously to do with the majors moving up significantly. As we said, BTC hit not 94K, actually. BTC hit, what did I say just before? Yeah, 93.6K. As we speak, ETH up to 1.8K now, Solana up to $153. And that is on the back of Trump, on the one hand, saying that there is no intention of firing the Fed chairman, Jay Powell, and also softening the tone versus China, specifically saying that the rates are very, very high right now, and they will come down significantly, not to zero, but they will come down. Second piece of news, which I find super interesting as well, is Cantor, the company which is run by the US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Lutnick's son specifically is about to close a $3 billion venture with SoftBank and Tether to create this multi-billion Bitcoin acquisition vehicle. Something we've touched on the show 2 or 3 times already, I think, but this deal is now progressing, and there's some more details to be shared on that. And last but not least, the whole meme sector, as we just have seen, is experiencing a major, major move up. Also, Fartcoin up 8% to 1.15. We mentioned some of the others, including Pengo, Cerebro, and Pepe. We'll definitely spend some more time to also discuss this meme coin price action as well. Some more notable price action. Virtuals is up 33% to 0.77 cents. I posted, hey Anon, that DEEF AI coin also being up more than 30%. So it does seem that we have a bit of recovery going on the AI side of things as well, which we'll also touch on the show a bit later. On the L1 side of things, Sui is leading the race, up 27%, up to $2.94. Hype up 4%, sorry, back to $19. And not only is the Virtuals token up itself, but the entire Virtuals ecosystem with all the AI agents is up 34% on average. Also, some notable sales to touch on the NFT side of things. We have this CryptoPunk, the hoodie one, which I'm sharing on screen, which sold for 134 ETH. X-copy sale, Remnant for 11 ETH. Dimitri Cherniak, the artist with the very iconic Ringers collection, also an 11 ETH sale there. Moving over to the NFT side of things. Actually, on the NFT side of things, it's a bit more quiet. The biggest mover from the major collections, definitely the Miladys, up 7.5% to 3.2 ETH. But apart from that, the Bored Apes, the Pudgy Penguins, the Azukis are not really moving too much over the last 24 hours. Interesting, though, the little Pudgies, they are up almost 10% and sitting at a 1.33 ETH floor. Just quickly checking in with you, B, to see if you're back with us.
Yes, I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful. Welcome back.
Good stuff. So I think what we'll do, just a quick one, if the video drops out, I'll just leave the video and my audio is fine. So like I'll just be on audio and space and it'll just be your face on the screen for people to watch.
This
so
will be very awkward to just be able to stare at myself for an entire 45 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be good. That'll be a good viewing experience for everyone. Just focus on Legendary's face and whatever screen shares that you're screen sharing. So you'll still be, you've got some company up there on the screen, but it'll be predominantly your face, I'd say, at least 50%. So we'll be okay. Well, I'll just be on the audio then in that case. But getting into some of the interesting stuff then, before we get into the main stuff, is there anything catching your attention from the Roundup side? Ledge, did you go through that?
We still need to go to the Roundup.
Let's get into that.
Yeah, awesome. Let me do that as well. So let's get to the rest of the news from around the space to get the Web3 Roundup out of the way as well. We have the SEC chairman, Paul Atkins, saying that the top priority is to provide a firm regulatory foundation for digital assets. Very, very positive news, in my opinion. Trump Media and Crypto.com to finalize the agreement to launch Made in America crypto ETFs, which we touched on, I think, a month ago. So political reporting that the ECB thinks US crypto support risks financial contagion and endangers the European economy. So quite a contrarian position to the SEC. Arch raising a $30 million Series A led by Cantor to build a financial rails for a BTC-denominated world. GSR leads a $100 million private placement into the Nasdaq-listed UPEXI Inc. to support its SOL-based treasury strategy. Just a couple more news. Janover completes its rebrand to reflect its mission as a SOL treasury vehicle. Annecy Top announces cloud, a point system earned through crypto-related discussions on X to compete with Kaito. Retroactive points can be claimed today. Quite curious to see how this will look for myself. And this is the final piece of news from the Roundup. B, is there anything that stands out from those news to you that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I'd probably wrap up a couple of these things together. I think it's pretty interesting from the regulatory standpoint. I'm still of the opinion that a broader, strong regulatory position in the US is good for crypto equity and not good for crypto tokens. So I think one of the early celebrations that people did when they heard that digital assets were going to be regulated in a proper way it was like this broad celebration, everything's going to be great in crypto. And I think it will be long term. But it means that all of the speculative tokens or these governance tokens, which the whole reason why we have all these governance tokens is, well, at least part of the reason is so that you could try to give out some kind of ownership governance rights to people, which traditionally would have been done by equity, but you can't do that by equity because we're trying to take a different model here and it's illegal. But now that everything's going to be okay, it means that this whole model that we've been experimenting for a while is not really as useful as it was. The whole point of it was to get around the ecosystem, around the system a little bit, and now that's not going to need to be the case. So I think this like strong regulatory framework, I'm increasingly thinking it's really good for strong businesses, equity. Tokens is just the bigger question mark again. So I'm thinking that. I thought the EU news was just kind of funny. But then the other thing to do with the treasury stuff. So there's two companies here that are doing the treasury vehicle. So you had GSR leading 100 mil private placement to support its SOL-based treasury strategy, and then Janover completing its rebrand to reflect its mission as a SOL treasury vehicle as well. So we've got two companies here doing the MicroStrategy version for Solana. Then obviously the main headline, which we'll talk a little bit later to understand that fully, is a very large set of companies coming together to do to be, well, not just doing MicroStrategy derivatives. I mean, yeah, they're emulating MicroStrategy with Bitcoin specifically. So you've got this move now where there's a couple more established companies trying to do this treasury strategy, which is obviously really, really important, significant. We'll talk about that more in a little bit as well. Any reflections for you there, Ledge? And then we want to welcome Brett to the stage.
Yes, absolutely. I want to touch on the first thing that you mentioned on the EU and the ECB, because there's a bit more to this story than meets the eye at first. So what is going on? Basically, the EU and the ECB, the European Central Bank, are arguing, and the ECB and the central bank is making the point that the MiCA regulation, which is the markets and crypto asset regulations in the EU, needs to rethink the quote-unquote multi-issuance model, which is Europe-based stablecoin issuers pooling their resources with issuers in third countries, like the US, to issue stablecoins. And the EU says that the paper that the ECB had released, the central bank had released, is based on a fundamental misreading of the MiCA regulation, saying that the ECB does not understand the MiCA regulation because it has been designed explicitly to resolve the issues that the ECB has mentioned and said that the MiCA is not addressing. So the EU official is also adding that it made quote unquote no economic sense for US users to impose redemption requests on European issuers, and that the idea of a traditional run on an asset that is backed one-to-one is absolutely nonsensical. So it's interesting to observe that the ECB seems, according to this Politico article at least, still have this like very protective view where it does not like stablecoins, and it's trying to create this sentiment that there might be contagion. It's not good for the economy. It's a threat to the European economy. And the EU now, after they have spent so many resources on formulating the MiCA, exactly that regulatory body, which you said is important, right, for governments, countries, companies alike, is now kind of pushing back and saying, wait, we solved actually all of those problems. And this does not make sense, that criticism that is now expressed by you guys is expressed by the ECB. So it seems to become a bit of a tension between those two institutions. That will probably be interesting to observe how that plays out.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Actually, it seems like their stories are not really aligned at the moment. So we'll see how that plays out as well. I'm still of the opinion in general that what's going on in the States is far more important. The EU can kind of create their laws and make the moves they'd like to make, but all eyes on the States to figure out how they want to play things first and foremost. A few questions that I think we're going to answer today before we get into the main headlines. I think this will be a bit of a fun exercise. Brad, you're going to get to hear Legendary go first before you try to allocate in this way. Going to do something a bit different here. The question is, a lot of these L1s are moving. Obviously, Bitcoin moved up 6%, ETH is up 10%, Solana's up 10%, Sui up 25% in a day. Well, that's pretty humongous. Hype is actually up 100% in the last month or something, from the $9 lows, and still performing like relatively strongly now, but not hasn't seen as big of a move in the last 24 hours. It's had much of its move in the last kind of couple of weeks, maybe. If you had 10K now, guys, how are you splitting across these very well performing L1s? Like, do we like the L1 trade? Assuming, in the universe where we do like the L1 trade, we want some exposure to any of these. With 10K, how are you splitting across? Legendary first.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very interesting question, because at first I was like tempted to say I'm going to do 70-80% BTC and throw the rest into some L1s. But then I kind of rethought my own journey into this space. And like when I started, I entered with a couple $100, right? I did not have a massive stash to enter crypto with. And it does not make a ton of sense if you want to be an active participant in this space, right? And it's not, if you want to be an active participant, it does not make too much sense to park all of your 10K into Bitcoin. If you are observing the space and you don't want to spend a lot of time in it, then yes, probably allocate 70-80% into Bitcoin. If I just had 10K, put the rest maybe into Hype, because it allows me to bridge across the other EVM compatible chains easily, or farm some airdrops on Hype, do something like that in a more passive way. But if you say that you're like happy to lose those 10K and you want to get the most possible return and the highest risk from that, at the highest risk from that, basically, which go hand in hand, then I would maybe just allocate the smallest bit, if anything at all, to Bitcoin. And then I'd rather aggressively go into Hype, go into Sol. I wouldn't go into ETH and Sui per se, because I don't think there's like a lot of opportunity to do things on ETH mainnet right now from an airdrop perspective. There's definitely stuff to do on the Hype EVM side of things. You touched on a couple of those things on one of the shows last week. Same for the Solana side of things. I can't really speak to Sui. I know it's like the big mover today, but it's an ecosystem I've never explored too deeply. But I would basically, if I had the 10K, ask myself the question, do I want to participate actively in the space? And is this my capital that I'm willing to lose and I'm trying to make it with that over the next couple of years? And I'd allocate way more aggressively to ecosystems where I can farm airdrops, because I feel airdrops are a wonderful starting point to like potentially up level your capital, and going from 10 to 20 to 30K is pretty significant. If you just have 10K lying around and you don't really care about farming airdrops with them or be active with them, put the majority of that into Bitcoin and pick something maybe like Hype for 10, 15, 20%, whatever it is that you're comfortable with, and just chill with that stack instead.
Yeah, that's fair. That's an interesting thing. Obviously, the thing you said at the start is correct, which is it depends how much what this 10K represents to you, right? If it's the only crypto that you have, then that represents something else to someone that's just like, okay, this is 10K that I'm playing around with. So I think that's a good distinction to make. Let's just go to Brad. One comment, I kind of agree with you on Sui. Like, I don't know enough about Sui. I'm curious, Brad, do you know much more about the SUI ecosystem. It's obviously doing very well. A lot of people do like it. Maybe we're just not personally exposed in that direction or haven't read up on it. How would you kind of allocate across these 5 at the moment?
Yeah, honestly, so I understand Sui technically. I have a good grasp there. I have not played in the ecosystem, same as you guys. To be honest, I would probably, given it's 10K, that's not like, that wouldn't be a huge portion of my funds, and I'm kind of a all or nothing dude. I would just go all in hype. I would do
Really?
hype, and I would start playing hype's ecosystem because I feel like it is one hype as a protocol is one, it's pierced CT pretty heavily, right? Like a lot of these other ones haven't that yet. Like, yes, you'll get people that kind of trickle in, like, oh, we should buy Sui because Sui's got move as a
Yeah.
program or a VM, and like, oh, it's whatever. But like, you don't hear people hanging out in the Sui ecosystem, at least
Yeah.
like not often. So
Well, just think, all 3 of us, we do stuff all the time, every single day on chain, and we're just like, we don't know enough. So like, it can't be just us, right? The fact that all 3 of us are in that same position.
yeah, now don't get me wrong, I do have down bad bags on Sui. Like, I have exposure. Actually, I think I minted like some of the
Reasonable
first
disclosure.
NFTs that were on Sui. So like I have a wallet somewhere around here. I remember liking their wallet, and I like the tech. Like I
It's
think it's
good.
actually,
I've used it like once. It is actually good. It's like super clean. It's fast. Anything that people say
yeah,
about Solana is like, oh, it's good. It's fast. It's good UX. You could say about Sui the 1 or 2 times that I've used it.
yeah. Is it different enough like to make a difference? Yeah, I don't know. Other than the programming language, which isn't something that's like going to impact us as users often. Like there's maybe some smaller stuff. So I would go hype because one, you still hear it on Pierce the Ethereum, or not Ethereum, the crypto Twitter conversational bubble pretty often. It shows up on feed charts really consistently, which means there's actual like heavy usage going on, right? Like, and the compliments on the actual perps protocol, like the application is always top of mind, right? Everyone's like, yeah, it's really fucking good. Like it feels good. It's a great user experience. It's amazing. It's continuing to be used, and then all of that stuff is going to splash off and go into the EVM side, which is, I think, uh, under participated in relative to like the amount of hype that the actual hype side gets. So I think it's the best combination of all words. And I'm looking now, it's hype itself is 25th. If you look at layer ones, or that's all tokens, sorry, and just at 18 bill FDV, which if you look at Sui, it's 28. So I think there's still a lot more room there relative to its growth in mindshare that it has.
Good answer. Yeah, I think it's helpful when we have these conversations to provide that initial set of thinking, and that's what we're trying to do. I think with these more personal sections is like provide the frame, provide the reason why we're giving the answer that we're giving, and we're all coming to different conclusions because we're interpreting the question slightly differently. But as long as we explain that, I think that's probably helpful.
I think it's because I'm also like, I look at the other tokens, and it's like I've already kind of danced on all of them. So like there's also a little bit of intrigue there too, right? Like if I go down the top L1s outside of like I did ton too. Outside of Bitcoin Cash, I did Hedera, I did Toncoin, I did Sui, I did Avalanche, I did Cardano, I did Solana.
Just looking for that novelty.
Yeah, I want to feel something again. I think maybe that frontier is kind of exciting to me too.
I think that's real. That is definitely real. Other things may get that kind of sense of boredom. Maybe we've explored already. Now it's time to try something else. My thinking would be kind of taking your 2 answers. I'm kind of fusing them together. If I only had 10K and I wanted crypto exposure, assuming don't need any stables because that's not part of the plan, I would probably go half Bitcoin, half hype. Like I love Bitcoin here. I think the Cantor news, which we're going to talk about, is really, really big. So I really, really like Bitcoin here. I think that the dominance could, if not continue to go up, I think it's just in a really, really strong position to see continued inflows from the institutional perspective. And I really, really like hype as the alternative for many of the reasons that Brett said. And then the only reason it's not 100% is because, I don't know, just in this universe where I like both, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I'm just going 50-50. I think Sol's actually going to do fine as well. But, if you're putting a gun to my head and saying I've got to do 10 and I still want to go more risk on with one half of my portfolio, I'm definitely going to go all into hype because there's just so much more to do there that is early. I'm sure there's going to be more to do on Sol as well, but there's way more to do on hype right now. We've been speaking about that quite a lot over the last few days, so that would be my thinking there. Any final thoughts, Ledge, circling back to you after you've heard Brad and myself as well?
No final thoughts, nothing to add, but I'm very curious to hear from Funky, who has his hand up. Welcome to the stage, my friend.
GM guys, yes. I mean, I'll keep it very simple. Like bread, I would just throw it all in hype because I have zero exposure to hype. I didn't farm it. I never got the airdrop, never did anything. But just between B-Check's constant bullish comments and everything else, and just having read the Arthur Hayes essay yesterday, he was talking about in his next essay, he's going to talk about the ones that Maelstrom fund, the alts that they're buying, specifically referencing alts that are generating revenue. Well, I mean, how many are there? There aren't many, so that list is pretty short. So I got to imagine hype is at the top of it. I even saw AIXBT bull post about hype yesterday, just and how impressed the AI was with just all the revenues generating and stuff like that. But I also want to say, as someone who has been using SUI for a long time, like I DCA'd into that position throughout much of the bear, like in 23, shortly after the token dropped. I do use the ecosystem. I do like it a lot. And just to kind of give you some context, our senior software developer, she is a big Rust Solana dev. And many of the SUI builders are people who were really into Solana. And then they kind of all matriculated over to SUI. So there's like a subculture that came from Solana over to SUI, and a lot of that is driving the apps and everything else, why the ecosystem continues to grow so quickly. So really cool stuff on SUI. If you guys haven't taken the time to really explore it, I would highly suggest you do so. We work with the Mistin Labs team, both for SUI and with Walrus nodes. So yeah, they're great people to work with. And of course, they're part of the former Facebook Libra/DM project that got broken out, and all the engineers and devs went to the SUI side. All the marketing and BD people went to the Aptos side.
Interesting. Yeah, good product. It works well. I just think people are so much more in tune with what hype's got to offer at the moment. But I completely take your points, Funk. Thanks for the additional context as well.
27,000 US American freedom dollars to 2.2 million freedom dollars, 24-hour revenue between the two. That's the difference. SUI is $27,000 in fees, and hype is 2.2 million.
Gosh. And hype is how many positions behind SUI?
And just like the coin.
Yeah. Or like, what's the gap?
SUI is 13 and hype is 22.
Yeah,
I think that's something we're looking at.
9.3 to 6.3 bill market.
Do we see hype closing those gaps, basically?
Depends on how you value this stuff. Like if it's a return to revenue for smart contract platforms, right? Like you look at the Tron's also generating a shit ton of revenue because of all the stable coins that are used on it. So like if like that's going to be your argument, then like you know you have to start putting that kind of stuff in the conversation. So I think it's a combination of the memetics of the fee generation plus the underlying mechanics. I don't know how much Tron mechanics go back to like actually playing with the coin, or like what promising things are on the horizon for Tron other than just like there's a shit ton of stable coins there. But we also know that Plasma and Co are coming along, and I'm very certain that their idea is they want to eat as much as Tron's lunch as possible. Not that Hyperliquid is in a unique scenario where like no one wants to eat into that pie. Like yeah, everyone fucking does, right? Like so everyone's coming for everyone in this industry. But yeah, I'm still more comfy on hype there.
It's going to be a massive challenge for user experience. If you think about the people who use Tron, think you are in Argentina, you face hyperinflation, you are not really interested in crypto, but you can move into stables pretty easily with using Tron and then convert into your local currency whenever you need to purchase something and you want to have local currency exposure. And that works very, very easily, very user-friendly. And Plasma needs to compete at that level if they want to eat Tron's lunch. They need to make it as simple as possible. And then it's like a game of good user experience plus targeted marketing to hit exactly that demographic if you want to come for that.
You know,
Yeah,
as I
that's a good
sit and
point.
look at the fees that are generated, you look at hype. Hype is number one. If you look at it on a scale of L1s, it's far and away at the top, blowing away most others. Falls off pretty quickly to, you know, couple tens to 20s of thousands of dollars for some of these L1s. But then if you put the fees relative to everything in our industry, hype's number 6, and you see Pancake Swap, you see Pump Fun, and you see Jupiter sitting above hype. So like just on a relative scale, it doesn't actually look that big. And then trouncing all of those things are Circle and Tether.
Circle and Tether, yeah.
Circle and Tether. $18.5 million in 24-hour fees generated for Tether. So in the last 24 hours, they generated $18 million.
One thing I will say now, sorry, go on, Nudge.
How much is Pancake making then?
It says 2.7.
So they're making more than Hyperliquid.
Correct.
But they're trading at a 600M market cap at 10% of what Hyperliquid is trading at. Yeah, it's interesting because then fees alone are fees alone are super important, but they're definitely not enough to value things or companies at. Because if they make 2.7 mil a day and you extrapolate it across the year, and the fees that they earn are higher than the market cap of the token, which is weird.
Yeah, you start to get into the other aspects of valuing these things, right? Like you think of the token that makes it, like Pancake Swap. I don't know what its token is actually used for. Maybe it's just for launches, whatever. But like these L1s are multifaceted in what those tokens represent, right? Like it's the moneyness property that you get from it, the different ways that you can participate in the ecosystem with these tokens. Like, you know, you can't do it with hype. Like I would say, like do validator rewards, you know, our block rewards, right? For actually doing stuff. It's a permission network. So I think there's only 17. They just added the 17th validator to that one for the EVM side. But like with some of these apps, right, you can't participate in the same ways. And it doesn't have those moneyness properties because I'm not using Pancake Swap to put into the Jito to do some staking to then leverage that into a NFT protocol to do whatever, right? Like you don't have these compounding secondary, tertiary things that you can do with the token, like the moneyness stuff. And there's value there. Is that worth what it is now? There's also a world that we're careening towards where like maybe we overpriced all of these L1s, right? Like we keep benchmarking everything against the history of L1 pricing, which is historically Ethereum. But there's entirely a world where apps take over. L1 pricing as a whole compresses, but it compresses lower because it's just infrastructure that maybe does not have to eat as much of the pie as we once thought, right? The fat protocol thesis versus the fat app thesis, where all the value accrues at the applications, which we're starting to see, versus all the value accruing at the L1, which maybe is not necessarily the case as much as we thought.
Interesting. Okay, good stuff. The one thing I would say is we keep kind of leaning into Plasma there, and it's not part of the conversation yet, but whenever that does become the part of the conversation, and we need to figure out a way to get some type of exposure to that, given how strongly backed it is by Tether. I think that is something you want to do. One of the things I've already said for that is that if you are interested in Plasma or trying to get involved, they do have a Discord and they have something called the Stablecoin Collective, which I'm not in, but if you make various contributions and share it in there are groups of people who they're kind of admitting into the Stablecoin Collective, whatever that means. Probably means something. I don't know what it means for sure, but it's better than not doing anything when trying to get involved in what I think will be a very big attempt, as you said, maybe to eat Tron's lunch and capture a lot of that stablecoin transaction and those fees. So that'll be interesting to see. Before we get into the main headlines, which are really, really important today, I just want to touch on one other thing. Obviously, the memes have gone crazy in the last 24 hours, specifically in the AI sector. Everything really, really ran. Had things like Cerebro go up 160% in a day. We saw a bunch of the virtuals ecosystem go up 35% on average, with the virtual token itself going up 35%. quick question here, Ledge, or just some reflections on, I mean, I think Pengu was up 50% as well. So it's not just, you've got AI going, you've got the other meme coins going. Fartcoin up only 8% on the day, I think, up to maybe $1.15. How are you thinking about all this stuff, Ledge? Maybe specifically to do with AI, because that's one of the bigger movers. Are we going to run back the AI stuff again? Is that something that you're interested in re-getting your exposure into? Or is that something that was a little bit of a bubble at one point, participated in, now you're looking for the next thing?
That's a very good question, because if you look at the more infrastructure heavy AI protocols, look at something like BitTensor. BitTensor has also had a massive rally. BitTensor is up.
It's been doing great. It's up 45% on the week, right?
45% on the week, exactly. If you look at the Render token, that's up 27 on the week. If you look at GRT graph, that's up 20%. Arweave is up 30%. So it does seem that there is a good amount of movement for the infrastructure side as well, and that is exceeding ETH's 7-day move. ETH is up 14% over the last 7 days. It's also exceeding Solana, which is at 22% over the last 7 days. So it is not only tracking the performance of the corresponding majors, but it is outperforming them. And then, as you said, you have the Cerebros, you have AI16Z, which is 40% on the day, 46 on the week, which is seeing more massive movements. I think the space, the AI sector, is becoming very interesting. Again, I had mentioned Heanon, DeFi sector also being up 30% on the day. I do think that we sold off all of the AI memes, and rightly so, because a lot of the companies, or like companies, meme coins, whatever you want to call them, projects, did not do a lot of stuff. But then you have some of the projects who continue to work on whatever it is that they were doing, whether it was Arc, whether that was Heanon or other tools, and they are seeing the strongest rebounds now, because then they appeared to basically be undersold versus the other AI memes who didn't really do anything. And then, yes, you have Cerebro kind of weirdly outperforming all of that. Don't know where to put that in my like mental model yet. So I'm basically ignoring it because I've never been too much into Cerebro. But I do think that AI might have a second leg coming, not only from the meme perspective, but more so from an infrastructure perspective, especially now as we get into, as I think we've experienced already this next leg of acceleration when it comes to the development of AI models, etc. And we basically are still like in the infancy of humanoid robotics. There is very few tokens that have anything to do with that. There's a specific little robot on, what's his name, on Virtuals, the mini autonomous robot something. I'll look it up in a couple minutes to have that name ready as well. So I do think there could be a lot of catalysts that make AI tokens interesting again. But as much as we like see this big movements in memes, I think it's also important to point out that the infrastructure stuff like BitTensor is up 45% on the week as well, which is again pretty impressive.
Okay, I would kind of take slightly the other side on this, where I really don't think that on the AI memes specifically, and realistically, many of them were memes. I think maybe we wanted to call them whatever we wanted to, AI agents, and the various ways that people try to turn memes into agents and just get them doing some kind of relatively basic tech, from what I understood, although I'm not one of the technical people. I don't know if people are going to fall for that specific trick again. I think there was a bit of branding, a bit of, suggesting that you're investing in the next leg of AI meme tech, when actually it was just, a coin that people wanted to send. So I don't know if on the meme side of things that can move again. Although, look, it can be up 30% today. It's still probably down 90%, if not more. So that's the other thing to point out, right? This stuff is like crazy down. So 30% up on a day might be nice if you bought yesterday. I don't know how many people bought yesterday inside. I mean, obviously some people did to move it 30%, but there'll be a lot of like huge bag holders here from beforehand. So I'm not sure on that side. I think BitTensor, something like that, is bit more fundamental. The limited amount of reading I've done on that is it's kind of exploring a Bitcoin model for training AI, and so there's a value prop there that is modeling Bitcoin's value prop, just kind of converted into the AI world. And so something like that could be more interesting to me. It seems like there's some kind of fundamental value there potentially. Go on.
Just quickly adding to that, because I think that's such an important point. If you just look at how these charts shape out, there we go. This is Bitensor. Bitensor all-time chart going from the start of 2023 to now. Has had two peaks at $600-ish, $700-ish dollars. It's never really gone under $200 and has hit this low at 204 and ever since recovered to 335. This is the rally we're looking at right now. And then the token I referenced earlier, the small autonomous motherfucker, Sam, which is this robot that's exploring the real world, which is, again, iCompany I find interesting. Yes, the 24-hour picture looks beautiful, up 32%, but exactly what you said. If you zoom out, we are like far, far away from its peak. And yeah, we are recovering a bit from that, but we are still down massively on that. So it does paint a significantly different picture from the more infrastructure heavy tokens like Bitensor.
Is this the robot that got fucked up by people? Like anytime I think about a robot exploring the world, I think about like the old hitchhiker ones that they would put out in the world. Like, oh, we're gonna have this robot go across the world, and then they find it like dismembered on the side of Philly, like on a highway, because it's just like people are people, and they're like destroying this shit. What is this thing doing? The autonomous thing.
This is actually by a company that is working in robotics. That it's a private company that's not investable yet, and the Sam robot is basically autonomously exploring the world and just not really being remote controlled. But I think it's like more of collecting data and making aware of that. And why it has become popular is because some people have viewed it as and that's again that conversation, the age-old conversation we had so many times on the show, viewed it as a vehicle to get exposure to the company, which is not the same as investing in the company behind it, but it's like the only thing you kind of can do.
Yeah, that thing's dead. No chance it survives if it's just going to be let go to like free roam. That thing's dead.
Dead robots.
We can't have nice things. I think that's a fact.
We did talk about how trading the animal coins, you had your specialist traders of live animal coins and dead animal coins, like the two specific different categories. So you can have live robots trading and dead robot trading. I think that would be something to think about.
Real quick, Brad. The thing is, it's not in Philly. The robot.
Yeah, not yet.
Here is like somewhere very, very remotely where it can't be endangered and attacked by humans, but you can basically see its live streams and see where it is currently exploring. And this is Alice Springs in Australia, so no humans to fuck it up.
Even worse. Have you seen the kangaroos down there and the emus? They beat the humans. They're worse than us.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Okay, boys, we've only got 10 minutes left. We've gone on longer on the AI and the memes and the L1 trades. And I think that was interesting on a day where there's been such big movement to touch in there. But there was two very important bits of news as well today. Ledge, I'm going to give you like 4 minutes to talk through maybe just some of the political stuff, the updates on Trump, China. I thought there was some interesting bits that I think people really need to know. Again, all this stuff is changing so often, but there were some interesting bits. Then, Brad, you're going to take us to the Cantor news, which is arguably way bigger news specifically for Bitcoin. So, Ledge, take us through your bit first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep it short. As we said, the market is up massively. That goes for stocks as well. That goes for the pre-markets. S&P futures up 2.4%. Dow is up 1.8%. NASDAQ is up almost 3%. Another important stat is the net inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs. Yesterday, we reported on 380 mil, and we're pretty happy about that number. Today, we can report that yesterday's inflows are at $912 million, which is
really, didn't even see that.
Very significant amount, absolutely. And the two positive things that tie basically into this changed sentiment is, on the one hand, Donald Trump saying that he has no intention of firing J. Powell. Trump, that is, has been asked about this specifically, and also his complaints that the Fed needed to cut borrowing costs in comments in the Oval Office on Tuesday. He responded to those and also had added that I don't want to talk about that because I have no intention of firing him. So this was definitely a very positively received news by the market. And then on the other side of things, it is a bit of a softer tone when it comes to the trade war with China, with Trump in this Q&A session has said that 145%, referring to the tariff amount, is very high, and it won't be that high. It won't be anywhere near that high. It will come down substantially, but it won't be zero. So definitely signaling a bit of an easier tone there, which also the Asian markets have liked as well. Hong Kong index is up more than 2%. Nikkei in Japan was also up 2%, and South Korea up 1.5%. So this basically more friendly, softer tone has not only been positive for the Chinese markets, but for the greater Asian region in itself as well.
Excellent short summary. I think those are the two things that we wanted to bring out, and we're going to go to Bread's third thing, which might have also played a role as well with the Cantor stuff. The interesting thing for me analyzing this was it seemed like the market had decided that if Trump did want to sack Jay Powell, then that is bullish for Bitcoin because everything's falling apart and it's chaos. And even on that rhetoric, the market started moving, at least for Bitcoin, it started moving up. Stocks were going the other direction. But now it appears in the other scenario also, okay, well, he's kind of softening, whether with regard to the Fed and in regard to China. So, well, that's also good for Bitcoin. So it seemed like, at least for a short period of time, it's not like a long time that was the case, right? It was only at the start of this week, probably 2 days ago, we were talking about the decoupling. So it's not like it's been going on forever. But at least for a short period of time, it's felt like if Trump sacks him, that's bad. Market hates that, but it's good for Bitcoin. If Trump keeps him, starts to behave more reasonably, the market prefers that, and that's still good for Bitcoin. So that's like just an interesting observation. I don't know if you thought that, is that out of whack, or what did you think?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I did not have that train of thought before, but I can get behind it. It makes sense, yeah.
My thing is just
what did you think?
I like to take a snapshot of these moments that I'm feeling, right? The emotions that I'm feeling, rise, like get out of my own body and be like, what's going on in your world, Brett? What's life? And I think back to like 2 weeks ago where things were dark and gloomy. And I'm like, and all I can think about is this is gonna be a volatile goddamn 4 years with this guy, huh? We kind of knew volatility was the thing that's going to be the future. We're good that we have structural improvements, but it's just like we are going to be in a it's so over, we're so back, like dialed up environment for the foreseeable future. And I want to try to remember my thoughts during these moments whenever the it's so overs come back, to just go like, man, it's going to come back because this is what it's going to be for a while. So don't let the ride get too dramatic in either direction, because that means we're also probably going to have an it's so over here soon. So I'm trying to take stock of what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling in the market, like which things are bouncing right now, and say, okay, like as we go through this roller coaster, and he's undoubtedly going to do something that's going to spook literally everyone in the world, because it's what he does for fun, apparently. Then like, you find the things that you want to acquire at that time.
Fair point. One of the interesting reflections, I think I tweeted this a couple of weeks ago as well, was that for all the back and forth, for all of the drama, Bitcoin still ultimately ranged between like mid 70s and 90 or something, which is, if you were told someone that 6 months ago, 12 months ago, probably be pretty calm with that, knowing that you're in a kind of 10, 20% band, back and forth. not something to be too stressed about, I don't think. But look, we're running out of time today. We've got to get to this other really big headline. Brad, let us know what's going on with Cantor and why it's so significant, I think.
Yeah, we'll speed run this one. So the headline is Cantor, run by U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's son, closes a $3 billion venture with SoftBank and Tether to create a multi-billion-dollar BTC acquisition vehicle. So what this story is, so it's Cantor Equity Partners. They raised $200 million in January. What's going to happen is they're going to receive $3 billion in Bitcoin from Tether, SoftBank, and Bitfinex in the amounts of 1.5 billion, 900 million, and 600 million, respectively. And basically, what it's going to do is they sold this amount of Bitcoin to the Cantor Equity Partners at roughly, I think it's $85,000 per coin for a $10 per share equity stake inside of the business. And then this is just going to be a vehicle for acquiring Bitcoin going forward, similar to MicroStrategy, right? It's been a successful thing. They think they're bullish on what Bitcoin is and will be price-wise. So they're just trying to mirror that through a new vehicle. Now, they're also raised a $350 million convertible bond and a separate $200 million private equity placement to buy additional Bitcoin. And they're basically just going to keep finding ways to buy Bitcoin with the money that they have that has stake in Bitcoin, very similar to what MicroStrategy, right? They buy Bitcoin, Bitcoin goes up, then they issue bonds or convertible bonds to buy more Bitcoin, and they just keep doing this loop until they can acquire all the Bitcoins in the world. So now they're racing another very large entity, which again, Tether committed $1.5 billion in Bitcoin into this. So it's not a small part, it's not a small effort, and they're all DCAing.
Yeah, I just think this is such huge news. It's such huge news that these specific, I think the reason why it's so huge is like, yes, there are other companies that do this. We know MetaPlanet do it. We know some other people around the world do it, and Strategy obviously doing it all the time. But the specific people who are doing it, so this is obviously an arm, or like Tether are involved, and they obviously have a ton of Bitcoin already. But the fact that it's adjacent to the administration, in the sense that it's the son of the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, it feels like this is very close to home, and that it's just all kind of playing out as people would have hoped, I think, in this specific way. Brett, did you want to come in again, and then I want to go to Ledge?
No, it's just the game theoretics of it, right? So like it's large entities, eventually nation states is the hope, and it's just like the scale continues to increase is always been the bull case for Bitcoin. And through that, because it's a fixed supply, number go up, and that's good for everyone who already has some.
Okay, so I think that's not too difficult for people to understand. That's the core thesis for crypto / Bitcoin is this kind of end game scenario. The challenge question I have for you, Legendary, which I don't know if there's a right answer to at the minute, but the question is, in a scenario where the US seem to be taking this leadership role in crypto, and they want to start accumulating in this specific way, and even if it's not the US administration, this is like the Commerce Secretary's son, and
it's one step removed.
One step removed, in bed with the crypto, with the biggest crypto company, Tether, the biggest fee-earning crypto company. They're in bed with them. So, how does the rest of the world feel? Move in a universe where the U.S. administration is being increasingly hostile to them, starting to get shaken down a little bit by the administration. Everyone kind of not really wanting that. How do they feel about moving from $1 reserve into another reserve, Bitcoin, which is also going to be dominated by the states? Like, do they want to play ball, or do they want to go and buy all the gold, which I think is what at least one of the arguments that have been made that China is doing. I know they've got a ton of Bitcoin as well, but my question is just there, like, look, I know this is one of the end games. People want to get Bitcoin, but is everyone going to have to play along in that respect? Be curious for your thought.
I think that a lot of countries will want to play along. I think similarly to how the dollar basically has established itself as the number one currency in the world, even after the gold standard was removed, it was the number one currency for more than 50 years. And now, if we're like really moving towards a more Bitcoin centric, Bitcoin backed, whatever you want to call it, Bitcoin treasury focused world. I don't see why, as a smaller country, you want to fight against that. I also don't see, if you're a country who's already holding Bitcoin, like China. I know that, a lot of people make the point that China wants to buy all the gold to kind of be a competitor or have like a competing system, but they, at the same time, China is also the second largest holder of Bitcoin, I think, from a government perspective. Basically almost tied up with the US either way. So if you're like a big enough country, you won't bet on one asset only. If you're a small enough country, you won't go to war in that sense, in that economic sense, with the US. So probably I would say that you have to kind of play along. The one entity that's obviously not wanting to play along right now is the ECB, the European Central Bank, which is saying, look, stable coins, everything coming from the US is posing a danger. What if they want to redeem all of that? What if European banks have to redeem the American-backed stablecoins? How will that work out? Because they do have in mind their own digital euro project, which they want to push. But generally, I will say, I think that most of the world will happily play along with that. Some will be, as always, faster. Some will be slower to do so. What remains to be seen is what this new entity will do with its Bitcoin, because it is like vastly different to me from MicroStrategy, right? MicroStrategy is either using corporate cash, is issuing stocks, is issuing debt to acquire new Bitcoin. Here you have a deposit of $3 billion worth of Bitcoin into a company in exchange for equity. And you could do a lot of things with that 3 billion in Bitcoin. You could just be a lender for OTC desks. You could basically find ways to use that in DeFi, or find DeFi-esque ways to use it in TradFi. You can put that amount of capital to work, or you can just keep it in there and accumulate more and kind of set this like quote unquote mental price floor of 85K, which is the price that Brett said those tokens were formally acquired, yet you could use that to seed more crypto ETFs. So you can be pretty productive with that, or just like build an even bigger stockpile. And because it is like only one step removed from the presidency, so to speak, I think it will be really relevant to watch how they will operate with that Bitcoin, or if they will even do anything with that.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Appreciate the takes. Kind of running out of time today. Just on time frames, one thing to note is that this is not happening tomorrow. It said in the Financial Times, while the deal was likely to be announced in the coming weeks, it could still fail to materialize and the numbers could change, the people caution. So I don't know if this is coming to the headlines because it's not going to happen, but obviously there is still the deal, the finalities need to be concluded. So in the coming weeks, probably, but just very, very interesting to see that come to fruition, or that the deal's already as far as it is. So we're obviously going to keep an eye on that. Super important news for Bitcoin itself. And we'll keep monitoring it. Guys, that was a great show. We've gone over time today. A lot to talk about. Hope you enjoyed the kind of additional personal segments where we're kind of going through, trying to challenge ourselves to explain some of our thinking based on for the ways that we might allocate. Going to try and do a little bit more of that in general too. Hope you enjoyed the show as usual. Thanks to Legendary and Bread for co-hosting with me. Thank you to Funky for his contributions as usual. And thanks so much for joining us. As always, reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour live on X Video, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify as well. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.